What is up there, LEGO fans? Welcome back. Alex here. In this video, we are going to be building and reviewing the new LEGO Eiffel Tower. This is set number 10307 and contains, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but 10,001 pieces. Now this thing will retail for $630 US. It will be available from the LEGO Group come November 25th, also known as Black Friday. Now with just over 10,000 pieces, this becomes the second largest LEGO set in terms of piece count. Just the world map has more, but come on, I think the world map is cheating with all those super tiny little pieces. This becomes the undisputed largest LEGO set from the LEGO Group. I think it might just outdo the Titanic. Now, the Titanic is no slouch, and actually I did a little comparison with box sizes here, guys. I brought up the Titanic box as I thought this was bigger than it, but it turns out it is the exact same size as the box that the Titanic came in. I also brought up the Lion Knight's Castle box because I thought that was a pretty good size box, which it is, but look at the comparison here. It is considerably larger than the Lion Knight's Castle, just to kind of give you an idea of the size of this enormous box. The Eiffel Tower is the tallest LEGO set to come out from the LEGO Group. It is 58 inches tall, or 149 centimeters. At the base, it is 22 inches wide, or 57 centimeters, which means this thing is going to be a challenge to fit somewhere on any traditional shelf. This might actually end up better on the floor somewhere. So as always, guys, what we will do is a time-lapse build, then we'll give this thing a proper review and see if we can find somewhere in the home to display this thing, because that, I think, is going to be the biggest challenge of this thing. So let's go ahead and get started. And we are back, and here it is, guys. This thing is absolutely enormous. As you can see, I can't even get this thing to fit in the frame. It was quite the build. Now, Josh helped me quite a lot with this thing, and it took us about 14 hours to put together from start to finish. Now, before I get into the build, I want to start with the unboxing. Now, the main box contains 3 interior boxes. Each box contains a particular section of the Eiffel Tower. An instruction book was contained in each one as well, which does mean that you can have 3 people or possibly more build this at the same time. However, I will add that the person building box 1, which is the base, will likely finish their section first because it contains fewer pieces, which are also much larger pieces and is significantly less complex than the other sections. And as you can see here by the difference in thickness of the booklets, that book 1 is significantly smaller. Book number 1 does contain some great information about the Eiffel Tower that I found interesting. I even learned some things about the Eiffel Tower that I was not aware of. We also get some information about the design team, and then it is on to the build. There are 74 sections in total spread out among the 3 boxes. I also noticed that this set does include informational bits about the Eiffel Tower throughout the build. I found these very fun to read, and it helped break up some of the monotony. The build itself was okay. I really enjoyed the first section because it does go fast as it contains larger pieces. I noticed they used several of the new road plate elements for the surface of the parks and paths beneath the tower. It slowed down a little bit when adding the smaller details such as the trees, bushes, and light posts, but as you can see, this adds a lot of great detail to the build. After we were done with the base, I told Josh that it reminded me of a game board because it kind of looks like one. While this first section did have some repetition, it was nothing like the rest of the build. When we started on the actual tower, we found it to be quite repetitive, and at times it did get quite tedious. There are many small pieces of various sizes used in this set. Now, when I built the Titanic, which has 900 fewer pieces, I never felt like I needed to take a break because the build experience was just so much fun to me. The Eiffel Tower did not feel that way. Now, don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed the build, but I often found that I was not excited to start another section because of the constant repetition. This is a build I feel you should take regular breaks from. I also recommend building this with a friend or partner, as you can divide up the repetitive work and enjoy some quality time together. I will say that if a third person joins in on the build, it might be better to have them work on a section that requires a different instruction book. This will decrease the number of times you cross and bump your hands while reaching for the pieces that you need. Now, while I'm not a big fan of repetitious builds, what I did enjoy was the satisfaction of applying each completed section to the tower. It was very exciting to see it slowly come together. Once completed, the Eiffel Tower is a glorious thing to behold. It is truly mind-boggling that a model of this size can be built from Lego bricks and be sold to the general public. Josh and I were also amazed that the tower does not depend on rigid building techniques. The tower is supported by all these angled legs that are made up of mostly 1x6 plates. This creates some sway in the build that can be seen throughout the tower. While this might create some realism, I noticed that if you were to wiggle this around too much, these sections between the main supports will come loose and you must snap them back into place. I also found out quickly that you really should avoid any heavier touching of the tower, as there are a lot of smaller pieces that can be knocked off. This can be a little annoying, so I recommend not touching the tower and get used to only touching the base section if you need to move it. In fact, the instructions specifically illustrate that if you must move your Eiffel Tower, you should move it in the sections it was built in. These different sections are interesting because it relies on gravity and a small offset to keep them together. The large sections attach via anti-stud to anti-stud, so there is no clutch. This works fine, however, my OCD kicked in a little when I noticed it was very common to see small gaps between each section. While this stuck out to me, I don't think anyone would notice when observing this completed model, especially from a distance. The design team added some very nice details to the model, which does include, of course, the park beneath it, which I mentioned earlier. We also see some small entrances at each pillar and the corresponding elevators that take you from the ground floor to the second floor. There are 4 other elevators depicted in the model, and these are the elevators that would take you from the second floor to possibly the top based on your ticket purchase. In its completed form, this is truly an impressive model. You can tell the design team wanted to get the details right. Now, I may not be a fan of repetition, and yes, this did get quite tedious, but in the end, it is those very small pieces that really make this such a beautiful set. So whether you are looking at it from a distance or up close, you can really appreciate the effort that went into designing this. So that is my review of the new Lego Eiffel Tower. A huge thank you to the Lego Group in providing me this early copy for review. Again, this will be available from Lego come November 25th and will retail for $630. Now, that price tag brings up my last point, and that is, would I recommend this set? Well, that will of course depend on how much you love the Eiffel Tower. But for how impressive this is and the sheer size, I would say that I think the price is fair, and that of course is based on the price tag I see on similarly priced Lego sets. It's a crazy world we live in to have so many Lego sets selling for over $500, but this is one that I think, if you have space, would be good to pick up. One more thing I want to throw out there, guys. The Eiffel Tower and the Titanic are arguably the largest Lego sets from the Lego Group, and they're very similar in price. The Titanic, $50 more than this, but it has 900 fewer pieces. Now, if I had to choose between this or the Titanic, I would still go for the Titanic. For me, that is just the better model, but that is my personal opinion, so take it for what it is. It is now time to find a spot to display this somewhere in the house. This should be interesting because I also want to find a spot that the wife is okay with as well. So wish me luck. Let's do this. Here we are down in the office, which would be an ideal spot to put the Eiffel Tower. And there is the glorious Titanic being the centerpiece of the office. Man, I love that set. All right, let's go ahead and show you where we ended up putting it. Didn't quite fit in there, so we put it right here at the bottom of the staircase, which is right where that's the first thing you would see as you walk into our home. So that is a pretty cool conversation piece, right, Josh?
Yep, it's right there.
You built this thing with me, right?
Yes, I did.
So what are your thoughts on this thing, buddy?
If you don't like repetitive things, then it's not your kind of build.
Yeah.
But I think they did a great job designing this, and I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't use any like solid bricks. It's just these little beams that hold up the entire thing.
That is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's
yes.
pretty impressive.
Absolutely. All right, well, pretty soon what we're going to do is a weight comparison. We want to see how much we pay per pound/kilogram with this set, as well as something like perhaps the Titanic, kind of see where this thing ends up as far as that goes. It's kind of a fun way to look at these sets. All right, guys, well, that was a fun build. Josh, thank you for your help. That helped a lot. It shaved hours off of the build time for sure. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.